Hello and welcome to the Wednesday check-in brought to you by David Gokhshtein and the Gokhshtein News Network. I'm your host, Landy, and today is March 4th, 2026. And we're looking at Bitcoin on the weekly, and we've had a nice rally to some of the areas, some of the exact areas that I've talked about on Monday. Should we start breaking above, around the 71 and then pushing out of the top side of the daily range at 72.2? Where was I looking? 74 to $75,000 initially. And then anywhere above there, really, playing in that 75 to 78 area, up to 78 to 80 being a big key area. That being the last lower low that was lost, right? In this weekly downtrend, a lot are getting excited. I think it's a little too early to get excited. Be excited. Enjoy the green days. But it's a little too early to call macro lows, which I'm seeing a lot across the timeline of like, ha ha ha, everyone's going to say that they bought at the lows and, they're going to be, farming you or whatever. Like realistically, this is a rally to resistance. This is a downtrend. And the only way that this changes character on like even a weekly would be with a close above $98,000, which is also the 50 simple moving average on the weekly. And a rally off of the 200s here, not unexpected. Just like, a lower high wouldn't be unexpected either. So there is some conditions to watch out for. I've talked about this quite a bit already, so many of you are going to be familiar with what I'm going to say, but bear with me. It is a downtrend. Where does that change? Well, that would change if we got to close above $98,000, right? Then we can start going, okay, that's a nice trend break. And people will get suckered into a higher high. And realistically, whether you're, trading to the long side or you're an investor, what you're looking for after a higher high, if that were to occur, would be a higher low equal low setup, right? Doesn't have to play out like this, by the way. I'm just giving an example, but it would be like higher low equal low, and then go out and, take out that higher high. That would be your trend reversal setup. So if you had a trend break, right, which is the only way we get a structural change, and then a higher low or equal low, and it can be, as low as these lows without closing below $60,000. It can even swing the low, but close above, like what we saw back over here. It can be, it can be a much higher low, which we've seen in the past as well on weeklies. Wherever that would occur, if this were to break the downtrend from here, that would be the trend reversal setup, would be on a higher low or an equal low or whatever it might be, if it were to play out like that. And then the confirmation of a trend shift would be back above the new higher high at that point, which would be the trend breaking higher high. We're nowhere near that right now. The other way that this could play out, and is much more statistically likely, is to get a rally up to a lower high. And this is, again, is just an example, but a rally up to a lower high and then come down for a higher low equal low structure and then rally above that lower high. Still plenty of overhead resistance, but that would be, your lower high to beat essentially for a trend change or a trend break in that case, sorry. And you would get the trend reversal set up first to then trend break confirmation to go and test higher. And then of course, getting through the resistances to march on to the upside would be the actual confirmation of a complete, trend shift, and in that case, a move back to the highs and possibly higher. So understand that the other side of this is a lower high to a continuation lower, right? So that is, in a bear trend, you go with the trend until proven otherwise. So we need to see a trend break. More statistically likely would be a lower high. But as I mentioned prior, if we did see a higher high, don't despair. You didn't miss anything, because it will have to come back down for higher low equal low structure no matter what. And that would be where you can start positioning or evaluating your positioning. And then that's, that would be the most bullish setup would be to go up and take out 98, put in a higher low, and then confirm that higher low trend reversal setup with a higher high. That would be a big character change on a weekly time frame. That would be something like this. More likely is a rally to resistances, and then we look for the possibility of higher low equal low structure that then can close above and actually break the trend. So otherwise, it's continuation down. So I know it's exciting. Enjoy the green days. This is playing out to the exact areas that we discussed on Monday and weeks prior, and everything that I've talked about. If the lows held, 58 to 60 area, if that holds, look for a rally out to the top side. And on the daily, we are approaching some pretty major moving averages that are confluent with everything that we've talked about, right? So we had the high come in at here on spot at 74,100. Where were we looking? 74 to 75. Above there, main resistance is going to be 78 to 80, and then we can start looking mid to low 80s to test into the lows over here, which is also around the weekly that was holding things up at $86,000 on a close, which, just as a reminder, $86,000 was this lower high close right here, right? And we had closed all these weeklies above it before dropping it and then dropping 80. So that was, and then coming in to test, 74.4. So reminder that 74.4 over here is also a monthly higher low. And we have, right now we're on lower low structure for the monthly. So even though the weekly structure is a downtrend, we have just a straight shot down for a trend break on the monthly time frame with that last higher low to the close here at 82.5, 83K being a monthly level as well. That was, holding up on a daily for a little bit, on the way down to 80 and then the break of 80, but didn't hold that well. And this is going to be one of the main areas to look for, that 74 to 75, that 78 to 80, and then mid to low 80s. So just understand the context in which price action is playing right now, and you don't have to buy into the FOMO. You can actually sit, wait, and evaluate, even if it were to do something like break $98,000 and run to the low 100s or something, right? Doesn't mean a whole lot outside of it being a trend break. Still need to see higher low equal low structure from there. So there's plenty of time for positioning. There's no need to FOMO, even if it were to be bullish. More likely, though, is tagging the overhead resistances, 74 to 75. Above there, 78 to 80. We've got both the 100 period EMA and an 800 EMA crossing right now. And then above there, we could see rallies, above the, mid to low 80s, and especially that weekly at 86, we could see, 89 to 90. That's where the 200 and the 377 are right now. This is basically full trend to the downside on the daily. So this is all a retest of overhead resistances, including right now, which was prior resistance where over here at 73,835, top of this range from 2024. So yeah, nothing too crazy here. Very much expected. Talked all about it for quite some time since we've been down here, essentially. So almost 30 days. Now, what's been going on in the rest of the markets? If we look at commodities, we're still kind of chopping around. We do have a little bit of a structure break to the downside with the lower low. We got the 5K run. Talked a little bit about that in prior videos here. And it's still just a big range. And realistically, to the downside, if it drops the 4,800 area, that's where we're looking for further downside to, 45, 4,600 initially, and then possibly expansion. 45 to 46 would be lower third to 100 EMA, Anywhere below there, we're looking at that giant wick low down there at 44. To the upside, though, if we do see where we hit target, like right on the close open at that 54.20, if we see any closes above there, we're playing back to 56, possibly, above to the 58, 57, 58 initially, and then 58 to 6K would be the next big one there. Silver didn't get quite the move that gold got. We did get a move down. This is still higher low structure. So we have a higher low, higher high. We need to see silver, closing above 72 to 70 for this to remain, and especially 72 structurally. But 72 to 70, I would say you want to see closes above there. You don't want to see closes below here. Otherwise, we're running mid 60s and possibly opening up the door for $60 even, and maybe even lower to mid 50s. To the top side, though, we need to see that 95 to 96 area break to actually get expansion to around 98 to 102. Anywhere above there, we're probably full on expansion. I'd say 105, 110, and then take that up to the 115 to 120 area by the highs, with the potential for more depending on the weekly. Really, the weekly is probably going to cap things around 120 to 125 at the top side here if it were to rally really hard. Nothing saying it can't go further, but it's looking like if it did really rally up there, it's the setup is more rejective than not. But it's a little bit more subject to global demand than not. Oil still sitting around the 200 simple on the weekly here. We got to pull back from our main zone between 74.40 to 78.40. If it does rally above, which this is full expansion right now, and I mentioned that as long as it's above around $70 and even around the 800 at 69.5 to $70, then it could still continue up. Above 78, looking at 80, anywhere above there, mid to low 80s, around that 84 to $85 is fair game. But if we do see this low dropped at around $69, look for it to retrace back to the mid 60s, around 65 initially. And as long as it's holding up around the 63.60, it's fine. Natural gas, had a nice little rally above $3. It's headed back down to 290. If it does drop any lower, just pay attention to 277. Anywhere below there, looking 270, that opens the door for 250. Anywhere back above around 320 to 325, I would say, right around this area. Then we can start looking for 350, possibly more if it does spike above the cluster of EMAs on expansion, EMAs and MAs in this case. So exponentials and simples. I'd be looking, $394 pretty quickly, and then come back and revisit. Initial expansions typically result in, a violent move in the other direction before they really get rolling, if they are going to continue in that direction. Now, when looking at traditional markets, Dow, nice recovery, and it did sweep our low side area, nearly hitting the next big area around the 47.5, 47.6 area. I think this got, 47.625, 626 area, sorry. Nice rally and close back above, the 48.5 region. And now testing the bottom side resistances around that 48.30 area. If it does rally, be aware of, 49.1 to 49.2, all the way up to 49.4 to 49.5. If it does start to get above there, then it can extend to, that 49.6 area to, 49.8, 49.9. If it really looks strong and starts rallying, we're looking right back to the highs. And otherwise, this is a nice buyback so far. Nice little temporary low. Need to see that solidified. NASDAQ, nice rally off of some of our key levels here. We got down to 24.3. And what was the open here? Open was 24.5. So yeah, basically opened right on what we were talking about, right at that 24.5 area. Nice rally and close above one of these areas, 25.1 or so. Need to see this area break to start running around 25.350. We can then look for expansion back to the highs and the 25.5 to 25.8 area. If we did see that, highs are back in play and higher. SPY, and I'll get you some like straight up like numbers on Friday. This is going to be a little bit quicker today because I have some things that I have to go do. Nice sweep of the lows, opened outside the lows. When you see an open outside of the lows and then a nice reclaim, probably looking at next day rally. That's exactly what we got for SPY. We did hit the downside area that I talked about, 670. We pinned 669. In fact, we pinned it. That was one of the areas that I've been talking about for quite some time. Nice recovery back above the 100-period EMA and right into the cluster here. And above 685, we can start looking 688 to 690. Above 693, we're looking 695, 696, and then possibly going for a run to that 700 if it does recover well. Bear in mind, this still, even though we had a nice low set locally, we need to see confirmation really back above the 690. I would say in this case, even back above 695 by the upper second and start getting that expansion back to the upside. Otherwise, the setup is still kind of bearish, but, got to give it a chance, right, to see if it can hold up. And I think that's pretty much going to be it for today. I don't have too much else to say on this. I mean, we're just, no Walmarts, all Targets getting hit here. So I like it. I like it a lot. And it was a good trading day for those that are day traders. And we'll see how high things can go in Bitcoin. Be aware that on the daily, the areas that you want to see hold up are going to be pretty clear on any daily retraces. Why is this not? Hold on. Why did this not actually do what I wanted it to do? There we go. I was hitting the wrong button. I don't have my normal setup here. So, you want to see this zone hold on any kind of lower term time frame retraces, right? Where that upper first is, you want to see price trending above there on closes. So around 70,000 to 72.2. This is the zone you want to see hold up for this to get continuation in the near term. Realistically, for the structure itself and continuation, you want to see closes above 72.2 for immediate continuation, but it can come back down to 70 pretty safely, even 69. Top side of the midlines here, as long as it's above the basis between that 67 to 69 area. If it starts to drop that, this is just a swing above the range into overhead resistances at that 74 to 75. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll be back at you on Friday. Please like and share this out there. And reminder that every day on the breakdown with David, I will be there for, a short segment in the beginning, breaking down markets, talking with David about stuff. Sometimes it'll cross over into some political stuff that's relevant. But it's, we're talking about markets and kind of what it is that I'm seeing happen. And it's a good little preview even for some of these videos after the close of day for some of the things that I talk about there. So please tune in to the breakdown. That is going to be at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time daily during the week. So hope to see you there. And I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe. And of course, as always, stay safe. With all that being said, Landy out. Take care.